there's a moment that almost nobody notices. It lasts maybe 10 seconds. Your salary lands in your account. The notification lights up your phone. And before you even open your banking app, your future has already started splitting into two completely different directions. In one version of your life, that paycheck quietly disappears. A few subscriptions. A dinner you barely remember. Random online purchases that felt exciting for 6 minutes. Small upgrades that seem harmless in the moment. A little lifestyle inflation disguised as, I work hard, I deserve this. Then the month ends. Again. And somehow, despite working constantly, nothing really changes. But in the other version of your life, something different happens. That paycheck becomes a worker. A silent employee. Every month it arrives, gets assigned a job immediately, and starts building a machine that slowly separates you from financial anxiety forever. Most people think wealth is built through huge decisions. It's not. It's built in tiny invisible moments most people ignore. Usually right after they get paid. Because financial freedom is rarely destroyed by one catastrophic mistake. It's usually dissolved slowly. Through unconscious habits. Through emotional spending. Through money that arrives without direction and disappears without resistance. And that's why the first few hours after every paycheck matter so much more than people realize. Not because of motivation. Because of psychology. Here's something most people have never heard. Researchers at Columbia Business School tracked 5 years of real electronic payment data and found something that completely contradicts standard economic theory. More than half the population increases their spending by over 25% on the exact day they get paid, even when the income is completely expected, completely planned, and absolutely nothing changed about their actual financial situation. Think about that. The money was always coming. You knew it was coming. And yet the moment it lands, your brain switches into a completely different mode. Fresh money changes the way people think. The moment a paycheck hits, your brain instantly relaxes. For a brief period, you feel wealthier than you actually are. You start mentally upgrading your life before your reality has changed at all. Maybe this month you can loosen up a little. Maybe you can finally upgrade something. Maybe you've been too disciplined lately. And this feeling isn't random. It has a name in behavioral economics. It's called the house money effect, the psychological tendency to treat fresh incoming money as less precious than the money you've had for weeks. Your brain files the new money in a different mental category. One that feels more available. More spendable. Less sacred. It's your paycheck. You earned every cent. But emotionally, it gets treated almost like a windfall. A 2024 study found that most Americans spend around 48% of their earnings within 48 hours of receiving their paycheck. Nearly half the month's income, gone in 2 days. And among millennials, that number is even more striking, 40% of their paycheck is spent within 12 hours of it arriving. Not 48 hours. 12. And this is exactly how people making good money stay financially fragile for decades. Not because they're irresponsible. Because they never created a system stronger than their impulses. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. The strange thing about money is that humans adapt to income incredibly fast. Researchers call this hedonic adaptation, and it's one of the most powerful and least discussed forces in personal finance. The raise that once felt life-changing becomes normal in a few months. The apartment you once dreamed about becomes average. The new car smell disappears. The excitement fades. Here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. Research suggests that as little as 10% of your long-term happiness is actually determined by external circumstances. Your salary. Your apartment. Your car. Everything you own. As little as 10%. Which means almost every lifestyle upgrade you've ever made in search of lasting happiness contributed almost nothing to it long term. But the spending remains. That's the trap. Most people assume their financial problems will disappear once they earn more. But income rarely fixes financial behavior. It amplifies it. Someone making $60,000 without a system feels broke. Someone making $150,000 without a system often feels broke too. The numbers change. The stress survives. The hedonic treadmill keeps moving. You run faster, but the position stays the same. Because money without structure behaves like water poured onto concrete. It spreads everywhere until nothing meaningful remains. And this is why wealthy people often look strangely boring from the outside. Not because they lack ambition. Because they understand something most people never fully grasp: every paycheck is raw fuel. And fuel without direction becomes fire. So the first thing that has to happen when you get paid is separation. Not spending. Not celebrating. Not checking what's left. Separation. Your future money needs to leave your spending environment immediately. That's one of the biggest differences between people who eventually build wealth and people who stay financially stuck forever. Wealthy people usually decide where their money goes before emotions get involved. Everyone else waits to see what survives at the end of the month. But nothing survives the end of the month. And here's why. Modern life is professionally designed to consume your excess cash before you even notice it exists. Your phone is a 24-hour spending machine. Every app wants your attention. Every algorithm wants your wallet. Every company is competing to interrupt your discipline before your future can benefit from it. And the dangerous part is how normal it all feels. Food delivery becomes routine. Subscriptions become invisible. Tiny purchases become emotional rewards. None of them seem destructive individually. That's why they work. And there's a specific psychological reason why subscriptions are particularly dangerous. Your brain registers the pain of spending in real time, but only when it consciously processes the transaction. Automatic charges bypass that pain signal almost entirely. You don't feel the money leaving. Which means subscription spending doesn't just drain your account, it drains your awareness. Most people can list their 3 biggest purchases from last month. Ask them to add up every recurring charge, almost nobody gets the right number. Financial problems are usually built quietly. One small recurring decision at a time. And because each purchase feels insignificant, people rarely realize they're building a lifestyle that permanently absorbs their future income. That's why investing cannot depend on memory. If investing only happens when you remember, it will never happen consistently enough to change your life. This was actually proven in one of the most important behavioral economic studies ever conducted. Nobel Prize winner Richard Thaler and Professor Shlomo Bonatzi created a program called Save More Tomorrow. They gave employees a simple choice: increase your savings now, or automatically increase your savings rate the next time you get a raise. Only 28% agreed to save more immediately. But 78% of the people who said no to saving now were willing to commit to saving more later. Same people. Same money. Completely different response depending on when the sacrifice was scheduled. The result was extraordinary. People in the automatic program saw their savings rate grow from 3.5% to 13.6% within 4 years, without ever consciously deciding to save more. The system did it for them, covering over 15 million Americans. Not through education. Not through motivation. Through automation. The people who quietly build wealth understand something deceptively simple: you cannot rely on discipline forever. You must build systems that continue functioning even when motivation disappears. That's the real game. Not intelligence. Not stock picking. Not predicting recessions. Systems. A person with an average income and a powerful system will often outperform someone with a high income and financial chaos. Because consistency compounds harder than intensity. And compounding is one of the strangest forces in human life because it feels invisible until suddenly it feels unstoppable. At the beginning, saving money feels almost insulting. You invest a few $100s and your account barely moves. A year passes and the numbers still feel small. Progress feels slow enough to question whether any of it matters. This is where most people quietly give up. Not publicly. Internally. They still talk about investing. Still say they care about money. Still watch financial content. But deep down, they stop believing the process truly changes anything. Because humans struggle with delayed evidence. We want visible progress immediately. We want proof our sacrifices matter. We want rewards now. But wealth grows differently. For a very long time, it looks like nothing is happening. Then eventually, the progress becomes impossible to ignore. The first $100,000 feels painfully manual. You are carrying almost the entire process yourself. Your savings matter more than your returns. Your discipline matters more than market performance. Your behavior matters more than everything else. You are the engine. But eventually, if you stay consistent long enough, something changes. Your money starts contributing. At first it's subtle. Then one year your investments grow more than you personally added. Then another year the market adds the equivalent of several months of work. Then eventually your portfolio starts producing meaningful movement on its own. That's when the emotional experience of money changes forever. Because at some point, you realize wealth is no longer being built only by effort. It's being built by momentum. And momentum is fragile. That's why the paycheck routine matters so much. Every dollar escaping the system weakens the machine before it fully matures. People massively underestimate how expensive lifestyle creep becomes over decades. Not because the purchases themselves are huge. Because the future growth disappears with them. A slightly more expensive lifestyle today quietly steals years from your future freedom. That's the part nobody emotionally feels in real time. You experience the purchase. Your future self absorbs the cost silently. A nicer car usually doesn't destroy wealth instantly. But the monthly payment does. The insurance increase does. The upgraded expectations do. The normalized spending does. And eventually your income becomes trapped supporting a lifestyle you accidentally built one emotional decision at a time. This is why people making six figures still panic about money. Their lifestyle expanded at the same speed as their paycheck. No gap ever formed. And the gap is where wealth lives. Not income. The gap between what you earn and what you require to feel okay. That gap becomes investments. Investments become assets. Assets become freedom. Which means every paycheck should follow the same hierarchy every single month: security first, future second, lifestyle last. Not the other way around. Because when people reverse that order, their future gets whatever scraps survive modern consumer culture. And usually there are no scraps. That's why emergency savings matter so much psychologically. Not because the returns are exciting. Because stability changes behavior. And here's the part most people miss entirely. An emergency fund doesn't just protect your money. It protects your cognition. Research shows that financial stress physically reduces your mental bandwidth. When your brain is constantly managing survival, it consumes the exact cognitive resources you need for long-term planning and rational decisions. Someone living without a financial buffer isn't just more stressed. They're operating with measurably less capacity for the decisions that would improve their situation. When you have cash reserves, you stop making desperate decisions. You negotiate differently. You think differently. You tolerate uncertainty better. Financial stress shrinks your thinking. Security expands it. A person with savings can walk away from toxic situations. A person without savings becomes trapped by urgency. That's the hidden power of an emergency fund. It doesn't just protect your bank account. It protects your decision-making. And once stability exists, investing becomes dramatically easier emotionally because you stop viewing every market drop as a threat to survival. That's another mistake beginners make. They think investing is mostly mathematical. It's not. It's behavioral. The market rewards people who can remain calm while uncertainty feels unbearable. Which is why automation matters more than motivation ever will. Motivation disappears constantly. Systems survive moods. The strongest financial habit you can build is removing yourself from repetitive emotional decisions entirely. When investing becomes automatic, your future keeps growing even during weeks where your discipline is weak. That's powerful. Because eventually, the machine starts running quietly in the background of your life. You stop obsessing over every dollar. You stop checking your account constantly. You stop treating money like an emotional emergency. And something surprising happens. You become calmer. Not because you're rich yet. Because direction creates peace long before wealth arrives. Most people think financial freedom begins at some giant number. But often it starts much earlier. It starts the moment you realize your life is no longer financially random. That's the real shift. Not luxury. Not status. Not showing off. Clarity. Knowing where your money goes. Knowing your future is improving. Knowing every paycheck is building something instead of disappearing into unconscious consumption. And over enough years, this process becomes almost unfair. Because compounding eventually reaches escape velocity. The early years feel slow because every contribution depends on your labor. But later, your investments begin producing growth that would have once taken you months to earn manually. That's when people suddenly look lucky from the outside. But it was never luck. It was years of invisible consistency nobody noticed because consistency is boring to watch. That's why financially successful people often sound repetitive. Spend less than you earn. Automate investing. Avoid unnecessary debt. Ignore financial noise. Stay invested. Repeat. It sounds too simple. People want complexity because complexity feels intelligent. But wealth usually grows through simplicity sustained for an unusually long time. And ironically, once the system is finally working, your biggest threat is no longer lack of money. It becomes impatience. You start wanting faster results. You get bored. You chase excitement. You convince yourself you need more sophisticated strategies. But most financial destruction begins exactly there. Right when the process was already working. Because boring wealth building feels underwhelming while it's happening. No adrenaline. No dramatic breakthroughs. No constant excitement. Just small disciplined decisions repeated so many times they eventually become life-changing. That's what people miss. Financial freedom rarely arrives like a lottery ticket. It arrives quietly. As lower stress. As optionality. As the ability to say no. As the realization that emergencies no longer destroy you. As investments that grow while you sleep. As years of your future slowly being purchased back one paycheck at a time. And eventually something even deeper changes. Your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone constantly reacting to money. You become someone directing it. That difference matters. Because people who feel powerless with money usually avoid looking at it. Avoid planning. Avoid systems. Avoid long-term thinking. But once you realize your paycheck is building something real, your relationship with the future changes completely. You become more patient. More intentional. Less reactive. You stop needing every purchase to emotionally reward you immediately because your confidence no longer comes from consumption. It comes from progress. And progress compounds psychologically too. Confidence compounds. Discipline compounds. Knowledge compounds. Money compounds. That's why the people who eventually become financially free often look completely ordinary while it's happening. No dramatic lifestyle. No constant luxury. No need to prove anything. Because they understand something most people spend decades learning too late, freedom is usually built quietly. Not through giant breakthroughs. Through systems repeated long enough for momentum to take over. And eventually, if you stay patient long enough, the machine becomes powerful enough to change your entire life. Not overnight. Gradually. Quietly. Until one day you realize something extraordinary. Your paycheck no longer feels like survival. It feels like fuel for freedom. And all of it began in those first moments after you got paid. Not with a massive decision. Just a system. A quiet routine repeated consistently enough to let time finally start working for you instead of against you. If this changed how you think about money, subscribe to Good to Know for more videos on wealth, investing, and the psychology behind financial decisions. And tell me in the comments, what happens to your money in the first 48 hours after you get paid? Be honest. The answers might surprise you. Disclaimer. The content provided on this channel is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. All opinions, analyses, and statements expressed are based on personal experience, personal research, and publicly available information and are subject to change without notice. No guarantee is made regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information presented. Investing in stocks, cryptocurrencies, ETFs, or any other financial instruments involves substantial risk and may result in the partial or complete loss of capital. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Nothing on this channel should be interpreted as a recommendation, solicitation, or endorsement to buy or sell any securities or financial products. All investment decisions are made solely at your own risk and responsibility. Viewers should conduct their own independent research and consult with a licensed financial advisor, tax professional, or legal advisor before making any financial decisions. The creator of this channel assumes no liability for any financial losses, damages, or other consequences arising directly or indirectly from the use of the information provided in this content.